real wages. You can pull it up. Highest they ever were. It was on a trajectory to do this. So it's been on an upward trajectory under Trump. It was high. Okay. Biden has taken advantage of a lot of Trump's economic policies. Okay. He's been able to take advantage of many of them. All that happened here, it was not a big miracle like you're saying, it was miraculous. We were able to recover from this. Yeah, that's what happens when you take the chains off of industry and the chains off of people. The reason that Trump wanted interest rates low is because his economic advisors were telling him something which is true. The Midwest is starving for credit. Okay, this had Democrat governors everywhere, all over the place, and they have been putting this squeeze on manufacturing there with business taxes, everything else. They can't get access to credit. What happens when the interest rates go low? Well, hang on. What happens when the interest rates go low? Everyone borrows money. The credit is there. Yep. And so what he was doing is he said, not only are we going to cut business taxes by 30% for corporations, but we're going to give them an incentive to borrow money to expand, right?
And didn't work.
But if we want to give them incentives to borrow money, we got to have a lower interest rate. His entire economic team told him that. By the way, it makes sense. And by the way, they borrowed a shitload of money. And a lot of these businesses did expand.
Please.
Well,
Well, can we please?
Well, no, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to. Will y'all then, regardless of that, because that's the whole thing, the stance on the Fed. But I shouldn't have thrown that in there. I'm just saying, will you acknowledge that whether it was Biden or his team or whatever, of the power they had, did a really good job managing the recovery out of the pandemic?
No.
Okay. Because that's what I would love to discuss. Because we did better than our comparable economies.
Let's just say it objectively. The people of this country did not believe the recovery was good.
That's not that's their feeling. You're right.
Well, no, the economy was listed as one of the top issues, and Donald Trump did win the popular vote.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you that people believed it was bad.
In general, the people did not believe the recovery was good.
Yeah, but to me, I agree. Yeah, but that's a separate issue. There's no question that Biden was not able to persuade the majority of Americans that his economic stewardship was good.
Because prices went up, as they did around the world, but we managed to get it down faster than our comparable economy.
The rate of inflation.
Yeah, but people
believe,
the reason for that is, like me and Myron were discussing this morning, you do realize economics. I know you've talked to Econo Boy. He's a smart guy, right? And he'll tell you the same thing. It's faith-based, okay?
Sure.
One of the things that's happened under Biden is a bunch of wars.
Yep.
Right? He's involving the United States in a bunch of wars. Now, you can say they're justified for him to be involved in these, not justified for him to be involved in these, but it shakes people's faith. And you have good shortages now, right? You have some good shortages coming from, Eastern Bloc country, possibly imports. I know, here's an obscure one, but ammunition to the United States from Russia, right? For private consumption.
They need it right now.
for private consumption, you know what I mean? That has skyrocketed. Obama had outlawed it for a long time. So the thing is yes, it's faith-based. When you involve us in different wars, things like that, it shakes people's confidence. When we're not involved in foreign affairs, we're not involved in foreign wars, man, people feel way more comfortable when it comes to their spending habits, when it comes to expansion, when it comes to things like this, because they have that sense of certainty.
My understanding is consumer spending habits have been pretty incongruous with the public's opinion on the economy. They spent a fuck ton during this holiday. It's pre-pandemic.
There's a data point for clarification, though. I believe that was largely higher income earners were spending exorbitantly and lower income earners were not, which created an average or a median.
Correct.
But we've seen in almost every single economic metric, a miracle coming out of the pandemic, including purchasing power getting back to what it was pre-pandemic, which is stunning given the price increases that were happening. I think the economic.
It's not a miracle.
I think the economic because
what happened?
Let me finish my point. I've been really trying.
Okay, go ahead.
Really trying.
Yeah.
I will say so. We started outperforming even projections. Pre-pandemic, we outperformed our other wealthy country counterparts. We brought down inflation faster. We got purchasing power back. We got wage growth back. All these things.
Labor force participation, that's a crazy one, the highest
unemployment's
since
low.
Bush.
And so in Western country after Western country, you've seen sort of an anti-incumbent bias because of price increases, which makes sense because people don't know what all the exact data points are, understandably. They're just they're buying things, and they're mad that the prices have gone up. But that doesn't mean that the management of the economy was bad. It means that there's been effective messaging campaign to convince people the reason prices went up was because of Biden when it was really
No,
a
dude, you
global
can't put it on.
phenomenon
You
that
can't put it
that he
on
did really well managing.
propaganda. You can't say the people were just propagandized into believing.
I think it's,
that,
well, I think you meant it
that
was
the
two
economy
things.
that the
Do you
economy.
acknowledge
hang
any
on,
of the points
hang
I made
on.
at all?
I'm acknowledging
Like deal with any of them?
what I'm literally going
Like
through.
why
all
did
of
we
this.
outperform the other countries? Why did we get
Yeah, okay, but hang on. Look, first of all, okay, let's go over it. Like real wages, for instance. If you look at real wages under Trump, they were the highest that they ever were, ever. So real wages, you can pull it up, highest they ever were. It was on a trajectory to do this. So it's been on an upward trajectory under Trump. It was high. Okay. Biden has taken advantage of a lot of Trump's economic policies. Okay. He's been able to take advantage of many of them. All that happened here, it was not a big miracle like you're saying, oh, it was miraculous. We were able to recover from this. Yeah, that's what happens when you take the chains off of industry and the chains off of people. What actually happened is this in reality.
Why didn't
The Biden administration was still pushing a narrative of masking mandates and other things that was coming out of the CDC, Fauci, and the rest of these individuals, okay? Largely, they did not move those restrictions off. People just ignored them. They just finally said enough, and they just began ignoring them outright. They ignored them.
Yeah, but what restrictions? I don't remember like federal restrictions on like just the American people. Were like
No. So what happens?
Couldn't get on a plane without a mask.
Yeah, what happens is
Wait,
But I don't
wages
think that
are
was
higher
fucking
now
up the
than-
economy.
These are federal regulations.
Yeah,
It's not
no,
just-
no. I'm sorry. I to clarify, just to be clear, I know that there were some federal regulations, like I think on the military as well, like with vaccines.
Yeah.
No, I just mean like over the broad American populace.
No. All of this was part of a greater narrative of it's your patriotic duty to do distancing. It's your patriotic duty to not give people COVID, and et cetera. You're going to kill grandma, right? This was all part of the kind of greater narrative, and it was very harmful to business. You saw that there was lots of big business winners and a lot of small business losers that came out of COVID-19.
So let me just clarify. This is a GPT generated image based on data. So take it with a massive boulder of salt. But it does correlate with data that I think Andrew has been pointing out, that a lot of people pointed out. I asked GPT to generate a graph showing real wages adjusted for buying power from 2017 to 2025. Yep. You can see that when COVID comes around, it does drop significantly. It increases in the last year, but then in the Biden administration, it did drop quite a bit.
Yeah,
So,
real wages
wages
increased.
may have increased, but buying power decreased. And that's not.
And
me
so
imputing
that's
the
what we're talking
integrity
about
of the
with
Biden
real
administration.
wages, right? It has to be on par with the buying power. That's how we're adjusting for the real wage. So under Trump, real wages went up more than anybody else in I think 40 or 50 years.
I don't know where that's.
And so the thing is like
That's not-
what's really interesting when you look at the data set for economics, like no, people clearly know that their dollar wasn't going as far. And here's what they know. They know under Trump, I was doing better. Under Biden, I was doing worse. That's all you need. You don't need any more than that.
No,
I do think it's fair to point out that COVID is anomalous, and the average person has no frame of reference for what a recovery should or should not be. All that really mattered when it came to the election was that people didn't feel good.
and listen, that's uncontested. I don't dispute that
Just
at
so you-
all.
I don't know how to send this to you, but I would love to. I don't know. That is the opposite of every single source I'm pulling up here that is seeing we've gotten back to inflation-adjusted wages higher than they've ever been. So that being the exact wonky, I think might be a...
But again, I just want to say I'm not contesting what the perception of the economy is. Where I do agree with Luke, though, is it seems like when you compare us to other nations, how we recovered the soft landing from the pandemic, the fact that we avoided a recession, jobs, not only the bounce back jobs, but also the rate of jobs that increased per month under Biden were even higher than they were under Trump.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I don't
we
think
were
we're disputing
already
the fact
up
that
on
we
the-
did better than a lot of first world countries when it comes to our
But
purchasing
even
power.
G7,
wealthy,
Myron,
wealthy,
respectfully,
wealthy.
I mean, even
Only the
G7
wealthy. We're only
countries like
comparing to the
Japan, the
Yeah,
United
we were better than all of them, yeah.
Oh, you said first world. I'm sorry, I thought you said third world.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no,
That's
first.
my
Dude,
bad.
we were already
Yeah, I
on the
agree.
upward
Yes.
trajectory
We agree with
under
you.
Trump before the
not
COVID
disputing you guys
pandemic
on that.
happened. All the numbers that most of the Democrats sourced, they sourced when the pandemic came in and the economy was shut down. Before that, the economy was skyrocketing. Yes, it was. And again, you can look at the real wages.
Well, I don't
and
think he's
pull up-
disputing that.
Wait.
Yeah.
I was saying we would never be let's compare Biden non-COVID to Trump COVID. Obviously, when you look at end of Obama to Trump, a lot of times I'll do those comparisons because Trump just kind of inherited the economy that was
No, Biden inherited Trump's economy.
No,
That's what happened.
disagree. Yeah.
during an economic crisis. But yeah, you could pull up metrics, and the one that you just pulled up again, I hope
You just tell me what it is.
Other ones.
I'll Google the title.
This one's U.S. News and World Reports. The other one is
What's the title of the
Okay, here, let me.
You can type it. Google.
Yeah, look, I don't think we're disputing with you
Americans-
that like the U.S. was doing better than a lot of other countries, like when it comes to our purchasing power, et cetera.
Americans'
given the
inflation-adjusted
circumstances.
incomes.
I hear you.
I don't think we're disputing. We're not disputing that. Like I see you're making the argument that like, hey, Joe Biden's economy isn't as bad as MAGA Republicans think it is. We can agree that we're better off than a lot of other countries. I mean, Japan is a great example where their yen just fucking tanked over the past.
We're doing better than China. I
We're
mean,
doing better.
yeah.
I can. We're not disputing that.
I guess my point is, if Biden had done such terrible things,
Not in trade
to
surplus, though.
to spike inflation, because that was the big argument, right? Like Biden made bad, irresponsible decisions that caused inflation to spike. That's the one I'm trying to get to the core of. Because if you agree, like, yeah, he kind of managed things fine, and you could say it was because of Trump, it was because whatever, but just acknowledging we got out of it pretty dang well. And then you can attribute whatever to credit that for. That's a big difference from the mainstream right-wing message, which is that Biden messed things up.
Yeah, but the
Messed things up
problem,
economically.
so the problem here
Depends on in what regard did he mess things up. Like for me,
Yeah.
for example, foreign policy, he fucked up. Right? The
about
conflict with Ukraine and Russia, that actually drove up the cost of food significantly. No one talks about that for obvious reasons because Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. If you strain food in one area, it's going to strain resources in other areas and the price goes up. So I find it interesting because Kamala campaigned on, I'm going to go after the grocery stores for price gouging, et cetera. But the Democrats created that problem with bad foreign policy, allowing conflict to happen, not keeping Russia in its place. So I think the issue here is I see where you're saying like, hey, the economy wasn't as bad given the circumstances. Okay, I can see your perspective on that, but we also got to look at other things like foreign policy where we're talking about where conflicts absolutely play into the price of food, the price of goods,
Energy prices.
for sure.
On that point, the moment at which Joe Biden's favorability dropped below 50% was the Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Can we read just since you pulled up? The inflation-adjusted median income of U.S. households rebounded last year to roughly its 2019 level, overcoming the biggest price spike in 4 decades to restore most Americans' purchasing power. So just since we put that other one up on screen, I want to make sure we add that to it.
Yeah, there's no way for me to dive into the details of these numbers.
Okay.
But
Just
Probably have to pull up
that's
but I'm-
honestly like both
I'm happy
graphs,
to
it's
reset
like-
this up if you guys want later for like a 1v1.
Well,
I'm happy to do
let's
it.
get into the foreign policy aspect of
Yeah.
this. So Joe Biden's favorability, his approval rating, it dropped because of Afghanistan. And during Trump, we had the end of ISIS, we had the Abraham Accords, we had attempts at peace agreements during the
Still
Biden.
had the Afghanistan war.
Certainly did. And it was during Trump's administration, the negotiated withdrawal took place. So you can argue both.
Why liberals screamed about it.
Well, you can argue both administrations were involved to some degree, to whatever degree you want to argue. My point is, Biden administration has been marked by war and conflict and crisis. Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. So subscribe and come hang out.